Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, host of the Riderflex podcast and founder and CEO of our day job recruiting firm, Riderflex. We hope you enjoy this episode. And as a reminder, please subscribe to the podcast for updates and news. Finally, if you haven't already, check out the series of books we've published on hiring, interviewing, and overall career advice titled The Riderflex Guide, available on Amazon. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Most homeowners don't have the time or expertise to properly take care of their home, which causes costly issues to arise. That's where Cura Home Maintenance comes in. We're a full-service, routine maintenance company that was developed by a certified home inspector. Each quarter, we service our clients' homes following manufacturer's recommendations to properly maintain all the necessary appliances. We provide the materials and expertise to prolong the life of your property, creating a healthy and efficient environment for your family. From top to bottom, we'll maintain and service your home. To get started, we have a property inspection to determine what needs to be maintained, and a maintenance plan is created based on your preferences. From refrigerator coils to filters, vents, and drains, we do it all, and we do it well. Contact us today for your free routine maintenance inspection, and never worry about your maintenance again.
Mark Hugentobler on the Riderflex podcast. I love that name. What kind of name is that, Mark?
It's Swiss German.
Swiss
Came
German.
from the old country, yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good. I was wondering. Of course, I mispronounced it. The people listening to the show today aren't going to realize that I'm going to have to edit that because I mispronounced your name 2 or 3 times before we got started. I'm guessing I'm not the only one.
No, it's not the first time.
Mark, thanks for being on the show. We've had a couple of pre-chats and it's been good getting to know you. Fascinating story. I want to get into everything. Prepare for me to ask you anything. Is that all right?
I'll answer anything.
Give the listeners a little personal background. Let's start from kind of the beginning, if you will. Where you grew up, mom, dad, siblings. Kind of give us a little color around that, if you don't mind.
Okay, I grew up in a white picket fence life. Dad was a dentist. My mom was a homemaker.
Okay.
5 siblings, a sister and 4 brothers.
Wow.
Rural Utah, southeastern Utah, a little town called Monticello.
Okay.
I had great friends. My parents were good people. All my neighbors were good people. I've got a friend, in fact, I think this is kind of unique. Outside my family, my best friend I made in the 1st grade. And
Really?
we're like brothers.
How about that?
Gary Torres. So I had a great life. We lived in the country, in the wilds. We lived at the base of a beautiful mountain, motorcycles and boats and fishing and hunting and just a rural lifestyle that is pretty unique.
How about that?
So,
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And your folks, were they a pretty conservative, religious family? Anytime I hear Utah, I'm thinking Mormon, but I don't know. That's an assumption. What?
Yep, we're members of the Church of Jesus Christ.
Okay. So pretty. Was your dad pretty strict?
He was a typical dad. I would define strict. He was a good dad.
Okay.
We lived a great life. He expected us to be good and to cooperate and get along. He expected us to learn to be kind and to learn to, we expect us to get educated. He had all those expectations. There were times when, like every good dad, he kicked our butts. And there were times he gives hugs. So he's a great dad. He passed about 18 years ago now. So it's been a while.
How about your mom? She's still with us?
She still is with us. Actually, she's in a rehab center. She fell and broke her leg a couple of weeks ago. And so, but she's getting, she's 85 now and she's getting on. She lives about a mile and a half from us. We moved her here from where we live so that she could be closer to me and we could help take care of her.
Very good. What kind of kid were you? Were you the rebel? Were you the straight A student, library every day, or what?
The best way to illustrate kind of kid I was, when I was 5 years old, my dad was in dental school in Kansas City, Missouri. Actually, they'd moved to St. Joseph's, Missouri to a dental practice to kind of do an internship practice before he moved back to Utah. I was 5 years old, and at Christmas time, my mom put me in a car with a guy that I didn't know. She knew him, but she put me in a car to drive back to Utah, and I lived for my last half of my kindergarten year with my grandparents in Central Utah. So I spent 6 months away from my parents, and I never cried. I was never sad. I was just living an exciting adventure. Every summer, the rest of my life, I went to my grandparents, that grandparent and my other grandfather, and lived with them, which was 4 hours away from my home. And I anxiously went and never wanted to go home.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I always tease my mom that she wanted to get rid of me, but my mom had 4 kids, was living her mother had just passed away from cancer, and she was having she's in a difficult place, and I was probably not helpful I was rambunctious. We have a motto in our family: go big or go home. And the other motto is why the hell not? So I was kind of a handful.
And how about as a teenager? Did you ever have to call your grandpa or your dad from the sheriff's department and come get you bailed out?
I never have. I probably should have. I never have. I had really good friends. We got into some mischief, and we crossed some lines a few times, but we really never got into serious trouble.
Okay. All right. So you graduated high school what year?
78.
78. Okay. Well, man, you look young. You look good for your age, man.
I'm not young. I'm 63.
You don't look 63. You look good. You look good. What are you doing?
We have the same cloth. Huh?
What are you doing? What are you doing to stay? Are you on a certain diet? Are you on a regiment in the mornings for exercise? What are you doing?
I was a basketball coach for most of my career, and I was just always active. And I'm an active person. I have a kind of a Chihuahua personality, and I'm 6'3". I'm a big guy, but I'm just really high energy. I get up at morning at 5:30 and I go till 10, and I really, except for occasionally have a nap in the afternoon because I'm old enough to do that. I just go a lot. I do exercise. I swim. Try to swim 2 to 3 mornings a week. I swim about about a mile. I don't know, somewhere between a mile and half a mile, depending on what I get. I've started jogging again, which I haven't done because of I've got my back and I had an Achilles tendon problem for years, and I've actually cured my back without surgery with some homeopathic things.
Really?
So I'm doing that again, and I try to eat right. My wife is a health nut, if you will, if I can say that.
That helps. That helps.
Yeah. So when I go on the road, I'm eating burgers, but when I'm home, I'm eating pretty healthy.
That's pretty good. Okay, so after high school, you went to college to play basketball. What'd you do? Walk us through some of your early life there.
Yeah, I played high school football and basketball. Out of high school, I went down to St. George, Utah, to Dixie to try to play. I got cut from the team. I didn't make the team. Okay. After that, I went on a mission for my church. Okay. I spent 2 years in France.
Oh, cool.
Which was a great experience. In fact, we just went back last fall. I have kept my French. I've read books and listened to French broadcasts, so that I can still speak French pretty fluently.
How about that?
It's been really fun. But I came back from there, and I came to a little town called, it's where I live now. There's a junior college here called Snow College, and I played basketball here. That's where I met my wife.
Okay.
That was back in 82.
Were you a starter on the junior college? Were you a starter on the team?
I was not. I was a role player, but
that's okay.
Okay. It was a great experience. I had made some good friends. We were a good team. We were in the top 20 in the nation all year long. We went to nationals and got beat out. But had a good group of kids.
All right. And okay, so you spent 2 years there, and then what?
My wife and I got married, and we went to Weber State University in Ogden, Utah, where she got a degree in nursing. She's a registered nurse, and I got my degree in education. And then I spent 33 years in the education world.
You wanted, so you were, what were you were coaching basketball, and what were you teaching?
Algebra.
Really? Okay. All right.
I got a degree in, I got a multiple degree in physics, computer technology, and mathematics.
Okay. So you were married the last 2 years of college then. You guys finished
Correct.
up college while you were married. Okay. Any
Correct.
kids during that time?
No, we didn't. We didn't have kids till we were a little bit settled.
Okay.
Actually, my wife had a hard time having kids for a while, and so
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, we were preventing it, but it was she had a difficult time getting pregnant at first,
Okay.
and then it wasn't so hard. So I'm not sure what happened, but
Okay. How many years coaching basketball, high school basketball?
23 as the head coach.
Wow. Okay. How about
It was a great
that?
experience.
We could do a whole show just on that, right? We could do a whole
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, boy, I'll tell you, we sure could. Yeah, it would be quite a story too. People might be interested in it because it's a world that I never knew the world till I got in it. I love my coaches. I had great coaches, especially well, my football coach was he became a mentor and he's a really good friend. And I just wanted to do that. I love basketball. I wasn't good enough to go, obviously, to the NBA. In fact, I didn't go to major college. But I loved it, and I love kids. And
what's the furthest you took the team?
we won the state title 3 times.
Oh, you're 3-time state champion. How about that? Congratulations. That's a big deal.
We won a lot of region titles, pretty much, I won't say every year. We won the regional title probably 10 times, 9 times, and then we won state championships. I had great kids. I had some really talented, amazing kids that played for me.
I know. I'm just gonna ask one more question about this because I don't want to spend all the time on it. But did you ever have one of those rich dads, like, powerful, rich family dads, kind of meet you for coffee and like, hey, Mark, like I really like my kid needs to play. Like any of that going, any of that stuff?
Yeah. They weren't really rich dads, but sometimes they were sponsored. They sponsor our summer camps or things like that, and they'd want a little extra favor. They didn't get it. In fact, one of them got really angry with me when I actually cut it. One of his kids, 3 of his kids tried to play for me. 2 of them did, and one of them I cut.
Ooh, he didn't like that.
He didn't like that. But I might add that one of them was the MVP of the state.
Oh,
his boys was the MVP, and he was the last boy, and so we're in pretty good terms now.
One of the best speeches I ever heard a coach give. It was we were entering, I think, 7th grade. Well, by the way, you were high school. We were entering 7th grade football. It's that you know how you go from little league where everybody kind of plays, and then all of a sudden you're in 7th or 8th grade where
right.
If you're good, you play. If you're not good, you don't. Right.
Right.
And I just never forget this coach. He stand up there in front of all the parents, and he said, look, here's the deal. He said, little league's over. This is 7th grade football. If your kid's good, he's going to play. And if he's not going to. So be ready.
Well said.
So good.
I can't remember how many times I tell people that I don't do this. Isn't the Boy Scouts. Everybody doesn't participate.
Yeah, it is what it is. Okay, very good. So you great career then. So you retired. Did you get retirement check then from school, from education?
Yeah, I retired about 4 years ago. Almost 5. Well, it'll be 4.5, I guess, years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Very good. And how many kids you and your wife have?
We have 5. We have 4 boys and a girl.
4 boys and a girl. Okay. Now, are they like 6'2", 6'3", 6'5", and are they all athletes?
We come into a room, the 5 of us, and we fill up a room. I have one son that's about 260 if he's on a diet.
260. And how tall is he?
He's 6'3".
6'3",
but he's a bear.
Okay.
My other boys aren't as big, but they're all over 200 pounds and healthy kids.
Okay. If I'm ever in a bar in Utah, I want to be with you and your son. So you guys are on my side.
It'll be safe.
Yeah, you guys walk into a restaurant, everybody's like, "Oh man, what are these guys? Look at these guys." It's pretty good.
I'm actually the little one of the bunch. Well, I have one son that's smaller than me, but I only weigh about I weigh about 220, and I'm the
How about
small
that?
one.
Okay, that's pretty cool. They're all grown, or you got what's the youngest kid?
My daughter is 22.
Okay,
Yeah.
grandkids.
We have one grandkid, and another on the way.
All right, very good, very good. Are you Papa, Grandpa? What are you called?
Papa. That's what they seem to call me. That's what the one called me. Actually, he's older now, so he just calls me Grandpa. But
Okay,
when they're little,
okay, very good. So you wrote a book called "All My Friends Are Felons."
yeah,
that doesn't really match the story that we just talked
No.
about
at all. Because my basketball kids were not didn't become felons.
Yeah, right. What's going on, Mark? Give us the story here.
Well, when you're a basketball coach, again, we could do a whole podcast on the coaching experience, which might be fun sometime in my world, because I'm doing a podcast now. All my friends are felons.
Cool.
But when you're a basketball coach, you make a lot of friends, but you make a lot of enemies. And most of the people that were involved that I had to cut their kid or didn't play their kid, most of them got over it. You know, they realize this is life, and life good and bad and ugly sometimes, and people make decisions, and you may not like them, but that's the way it is.
Yeah.
But I just got lucky, and every school in the United States has a school board, and they're an elected body that controls the schools and makes decisions for your local school.
Yep.
And here in this area, there's multiple communities in our school district, and two of the members of that board were not my fans. They weren't fans of mine. One of them, her son was one of the best kids I ever coached. We were supposed to win the state championship that year, and we lost in the semis.
Okay.
And she was mad, and it was my fault. And because her son would have been the MVP of the state, and it would have been great, and he'd have been all that glorious. And so she was pretty angry with me. And another man on the school board, I'd cut his kid about 8 years before.
Okay.
So anyway, and then I'm a kind of a doer, and I had a principal. I was the assistant principal at our school.
Oh, you were assistant principal and the algebra teacher and the basketball coach.
Well, I wasn't teaching algebra anymore.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So I wasn't doing that anymore. I was just doing the administrative stuff.
Gotcha.
Anyway, our school district is responsible for education inside the prison. There's a small state prison about 20 miles from my home called Central Utah Correctional Facility. And our school district is responsible to educate for that education program. So there's 9 teachers and an administrator and 3 secretaries that work there.
Okay.
And the principal at that time was prescribed to move out and move into the junior high. And in fact, he's now the superintendent of that school district. And the school board is determined to send me to prison. And I didn't want to go. It's usually volunteer. People that went there would say, I would like to go there. They went there to kind of relax and get out of the limelight of public school. Or some of them got, just anyway, there's a lot of reasons that people went there to serve, but they made me go, and I didn't want to go. I went kicking and screaming. In fact, I was pretty upset.
Could they can they do that? So let me make sure I understand.
You bet.
You're a basketball coach, you're an assistant principal, but there's this program at the prison, this education program, and they're like, hey, you got to go work the program, and you don't have any choice.
You don't. You can find a new job. It's the way school systems are. You're assigned to go where they tell you to go. It's kind of like being in the military. Obviously, it's not the same, but it is. You go where you're told, or you find a new job.
Interesting. All right. So you're like, well, could you still coach the basketball team?
No, I was done coaching. I had actually resigned that year, from coaching. I was kind of getting tired and wore out, and
Okay.
I wanted to just kind of get away from that and start just doing administration.
Okay.
So anyway, the superintendent told me, Mark said, you just go there, do your time, couple of years, and we'll get you back into public schools. Because that's what the previous guy had done, only he had gone voluntarily. And some of the teachers had done the same thing. They'd gone for a short period. Sometimes you come into the district and there wasn't a job except at the prison. So you take that job to try to get a job in the
All right.
local school.
All right. And what were you
So
going, what
anyway,
was
he
your
said,
task? What was your job there? What were you going to be
I was
doing?
the principal. I was in charge of the program.
I see.
It was
All right.
called the director. It was called the director, but it was the principal. I was in charge of the faculty. I was in charge of growing the program.
Okay.
So I went and never left.
How
Stayed
many
there
years? How many years?
8 years.
8 years. And is it, can you describe it for the listeners? Is it what the prisoners come into class or walk me through how it works?
Well, it's a unique experience, but we had a corridor, we had a hallway with 12 classrooms,
Okay.
and inmates would come in, they'd file in from their cells. There were 9 housing units in this facility. And at the time they could all intermingle. So we'd have them from all different housing units at the same time, and they come to class, similar to a high school, similar to a school.
Why the 12 classrooms? Just because you had to keep a certain number of people in each classroom, just like you don't want too many people.
At the time, they were mostly empty. By the time I got done, they were clear full.
Because the prisoners didn't want to go. They didn't care. They're like, I'm not doing that.
In the beginning, they didn't want anything to do with it. They were
really,
they fought, most of them. Now, some of them did, but the majority of them thought it was stupid and didn't get anything out of it. But by the time I left, there was 1,800 men in that facility. And by the time I left, 1,100 of them came to school on their own, of their own volition.
Wow. How about that? Okay. Very good.
And that's what the book's about. That's what the book's about.
And that's what the book is about, you building that program, about you.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. And was it general education? Was it like, okay, this classroom's math, this classroom's science, or what?
Yes.
Okay.
But we had each faculty, we had a math teacher, we had a history teacher, we had a science teacher.
Okay.
We had a computer technology teacher. So we had just like a high school, and they go to different classes. They could earn a GED, or we would actually give them a high school diploma if they wanted to earn one.
How about that?
More importantly, our goal, as I got there, the goals changed and our focus changed, but our main goal was basic adult education, reading, writing, and mathematics. And there's a standardized test that we used. When I first got there, every inmate in the facility had to take this test. When you first came in, when you fished in, they had to take this aptitude test, is basically what it was. It measured what grade level they were on.
Yeah. What was the average?
When I came, the average was just over 5th grade. And when I left, the average was well over 9th grade.
How about
8
that?
8 years later, the men in that facility were well over the 9th grade level. Most of them, well, not most of them, a good portion of them were right at, they tested out. So
I see. What's their incentive is to be educated so that when they get out of prison, they can have a better chance to be successful in regular life. Is that the incentive, basically?
that's the incentive. Yes, it's not, there's a lot to that, but yeah, that's the idea.
Okay. How did you get more people to join? Did you recruit? Like, did you go, or did you, Bobby came and you telling Bobby, like, hey, Bobby, your friend needs to come, or did you get to visit with prisoners and talk them into coming to class? How did you increase the class count?
Well, that's a long story that I don't know if we can really delve into, but I'll try to do it briefly as I can.
Okay.
When I went to prison, this is my view of prison, and I think it's pretty common. The Department of Corrections is doing everything they can to help these derelicts. These guys have hurt people. They deserve to be in prison. If they wanted to change, they would, but because the system is providing all these opportunities for them, but they are so terrible and so awful, they just won't do it.
That's what the system says, or that's
what's your perspective? What do you see in prisons?
Yeah, that was a good question. So It has changed because I've had several people on the podcast that have educated me and enlightened me. So
pre that, what did it look like?
pre that, yeah, I would think 95% of the people were just bad guys, and 5% of them got caught unfairly in a bad situation and shouldn't be in there, or something like that, probably.
Yeah.
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 That
And the
would be
department's doing all they can to help them, but they just don't want any help. They're just dirtbags.
Yeah,
that-
probably.
is
Yeah,
that fair?
probably. Yeah. But
That was
yeah.
my perspective. Yeah, I drove by that gun. I probably drove by that prison hundreds of times, and I either didn't think about it, or I thought, they're just dirtbags. Drop a Moab on them and get them out of the way. That's, But what I found was absolutely the opposite. The Department of the Corrections is complete, and I'm sure I can say this for every Department of Corrections in the United States, completely derelict in their efforts to help these men change. And most of the men want to change. They want a better life. They just don't know how to do it.
Now this is we could probably do a 4-hour podcast on this. Because I've had people on the show explain to me that because of if you follow the money, so to speak, there's so many different people that are benefiting from the business of prison that they need prisoners in there, and they don't want to make them better to get them out. Is what I've been hearing.
I don't know if it's that malicious. I think it's just a government program. I think government programs in general are derelict in their ability to function.
Okay.
I think that they are, and I came from a government program. I worked in the education system which is a government program. But I think government programs function on funding. And so they focus on perception and funding, and they don't focus on people. And that's a general statement, but I think it's fairly accurate. And I think prisons are worse because in a public school, there's a lot of public scrutiny. People can see their kid comes home every day and talks about what happened at school. They can go to the public school and see what's going on. Nobody can go to the prison and see what's going on. And the only thing that comes out is what the prisoners might say, and nobody believes them because they're derelicts anyway.
Right. What percentage would you say were men that were sorry for what they did? They want to be educated. They want to improve. They want a second chance versus truly scary, bad, crazy guys. What percentage?
I would say 10 to 20% are truly bad, scary guys. And the rest of the guys are hungry for help. Okay. There are some who are just, I don't know, they're psychopaths, or I don't know what they are. They're just off the rails crazy. They're off the rails criminals. But I'm confident that 80% of them, I think 20% of them are never going back. 20 to 30% of them aren't going back to prison because they just are smart enough to figure out that I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
But the recidivism rate in the United States, and what this rate refers to, is how many men go back to prison within 5 years of release.
What is the percentage of that?
Over 70%.
Damn. That's crazy. That is a crazy
71. Stat. When I read the study, a Rand Corporation study in 2014, I believe was the date on the study. 71% of inmates who are released from prison go back to prison within 5 years.
That is a crazy stat. Wow.
It's a sick number. It's a sick number. And, I was a basketball coach. I had 1 year where we only run 160, 32% of our games, 33% of our games. I got run out of town on a rail. People wanted to hang me. And it was for a stupid basketball game. Now I survived, but here we're allowing this year after year after year in our system, and it doesn't have to be. It absolutely does. We prove it doesn't have to.
When I ask you why it's that way, I'm sure that is a very long answer, but what give me some, yeah.
When your car's broke, when your car breaks down, who do you take it to?
Mechanic.
The mechanic. That's simple, isn't it? Yeah. Would you take it to a plumber?
No, I wouldn't think so.
How about a framer, a guy that builds houses? Would you take it to him? He might know how to fix your car, but you wouldn't take it. You'd take him to a mechanic.
Right.
Well, I'm not a bash the cops. I love cops. I appreciate cops. Officers are so important to our society. Without them, we have chaos. So I'm not really digging on, I don't really want to be insulting to police officers, but they are expecting police officers to change behavior and educate people.
Mm,
And it's just like taking your car to a plumber to get it fixed.
I hadn't thought
The
of it
guy
that way.
struck, they got to know how to do it.
Mm,
You know, cops are taught, and rightfully so, to apprehend, to put guys in handcuffs, to read them their rights, to throw them on the ground. Sometimes they have to use tasers or guns or things like that. That's their job, and we need them, and we got to have them. But asking those people to, without any training, to help people change behavior and educate people is nuts.
How do prisons in general educate and try to improve prisoners? Do they all have these education programs? Do they all have?
No, some of them do, but it's not just the education I'm talking about isn't book learning. It's not mathematics. I mean, that's important. Obviously, how would you feel? I know you've never thought about it, but imagine if you couldn't read.
Man,
what does your life look like?
yeah,
And there's a lot of guys in prison who can't read.
really.
They read on a third grade level or less. That's ugly. So that's important. But what really is important is, why do you live a good life? You live a great life. You've been successful. You have I don't know a lot of detail about it, but I know you have a family.
Yep.
Why?
I'm blessed.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
why? Well, you asked me about my parents. My mom and dad taught me right and wrong.
Yeah.
They taught me to be kind. They taught me to look at other people and be patient and loving and forgiving. And they didn't teach me to look at other people and what can I take from that guy? How can I victimize him? And so we have all these things that they're not innate. They were taught to us by loving family and friends and our experiences. Well, imagine growing up on the streets, or imagine growing up in a world where your dad taught you how to steal. Your mom taught you how to do drugs. Your whole value system is jacked up.
A lot of it is a lot of it that way. So is a large percentage is due to terrible parenting or terrible childhood. Is that a very large percentage?
Trauma is a part of 60-70% of these guys' lives. Serious childhood trauma.
Okay. Wow.
Not all of them. Some of them had a great life and just screwed up, just made a absolutely stupid decision and hurt somebody and did something like that. But
that's a small percentage.
That's not the majority. The majority have some serious trauma, and they just don't know how to live. In fact, there's a story. If I can tell a quick story, it's the first page of my book.
Please.
It's called The Violin Story. In 2016, I went to a symposium put on by the Department of Corrections. It's the only time I had a positive outlook on the Department of Corrections' ability to do anything, and it was short-lived. But anyway, they had a symposium where they brought all these DOC people in, and they brought in the lieutenant governor and a couple senators and spoke to the group. And one of the speakers was a former felon, was a former inmate. Okay. And he told his story, and I'm going to briefly tell his story. It's in my book. And if you want to get the whole story, you'd have to get that book. But basically, he was raised, he was living in Montana with his mom, his sister, and her live-in boyfriend. She had a baby, and about 4 months after that baby was born, the live-in boyfriend bailed. So she's up living in remote Montana with nothing. So she moves back to Ogden, Utah to be closer to her family and to try to get some support. She moved in between Harrison and Washington. You don't know where that is, but that's in the avenues in Ogden, and that's about as inner city as you can get in Utah.
Okay.
Just inner city. It's a struggling place. I know some people from there, and they're good people, but it's a hard place to live. Anyway, this kid grows up, or he keeps going. He starts stealing clothes off the clotheslines in the backyard. He starts stealing bikes. He stole him a bike so he could get around. He realized he could steal a bike and sell it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He goes in and out of juvie. By the time he's 18, he's doing jail time. By the time he's 19, he's in prison for drugs and who knows what. He didn't really detail that. Well, he's standing in front of his judge for the 5th time. in and out of prison. And the judge is disgusted. And he said to the kid, to the guy, he said, "Do you have anything to say for yourself?" He says, "I have a question." And the judge says, "What?" He says, can you play the violin?" And the judge says, "No." He says, "What if I ask you to play the Star Spangled Banner on the violin? Could you play it?" He said, "No." He says, "What if I put a gun to your head and says, if you don't play it, I'm going to kill you?" He says, "I can't play the violin." The kid says, "Well, what if I threatened your family the same way? If you don't play the Star Spangled Banner, I'm going to kill them all." He said, he was really pissed. He said, "Dude, I can't play the violin. I never learned how." The kid stopped. He said, "Can you teach me how to live a good life? I never learned how."
That is powerful.
So instead of the judge, obviously being a good man, instead of throwing him back in prison, sentenced him to a rehab and got him, he's an addict. 80% of inmates were addicts, are addicted to something, whether it's pornography, alcohol, drugs. Got him the help he needed. And he was standing there. This was 7 years prior to this symposium where the judge had sentenced him to a rehab. He was married, had a wife, 2 beautiful kids, had a business, was contributing to society and living a good life.
How about that? Wow, that's a pretty cool story. If people will just give them chances and educate them and teach them how to live, not just the book stuff, but how to live to be a good person. Wow, it does turn around in a lot of cases. I guess not every time though, huh? Even no matter what you do, sometimes it goes bad.
Well, we talked about those guys, the 20% or so. A person has to come to themselves. You can't make a person change. You can't force a person to change. If they're an addict and they don't want to give it up, you can't make them. Now,
Gotcha.
That's not completely true, because what I found, one of the reasons the book is called All My Friends Are Felons, is what I found is when I got in there and I was working with these men, they were just like you and me.
I bet. Yeah.
They were good people. They were intelligent. They were kind. They were trusting. They were loving. They had families. Some of them didn't, but some of them did. They treated each other with respect in my space. Now, when they went out into the prison, they had to protect themselves. So they had to live the game. Prisons are run by gangs.
Mm.
They're not run. The Department of Corrections manages gangs. If you have to describe what they do, they manage gangs.
Interesting. Never thought of it that way.
That's exactly what happens.
Wow.
And I'm sure that's that way across the country.
I always thought
the prisons.
I always think when I see these movies or whatever, TV shows, and you always kind of almost like, okay, how much of this is real? And I always tell my wife, I'm like, hey, these drugs and things that they get in the prisons, they're all addicted. I mean, if it's a legit system with real security guards and police, how do they get all this contraband into the prison? I don't get it.
Well, I've lived there and I still don't get it. And their drug problems aren't near as bad really as they're on the streets, because they can't do it all the time.
Okay.
They can use drugs and they can get them. And
Wow.
some of them choose to do, but a good majority of them, honestly, at least in my world, a good majority of them, once they got sober and it was really hard to get the drugs, they didn't want the drugs anymore.
Okay. That's good. That's good to know.
And I think that's true with most people. I think once they get sober and they finally get through that addiction and it lets go of them, the daily craving and the daily need, they start to think clearly and they're back to themselves.
How about that? Did you ever meet anybody I'm sure you did. I always feel bad for those people that, let's say they're regular person, regular guy, regular job, like you said, made one mistake, whatever it is, they screwed up and did one thing bad, only thing they've done, go to prison. Now they're in there with real criminals that have been committing crimes their whole lives. And then they're forced to join the gang. And then they get in a fight and accidentally kill somebody and boom, now they're in for life.
I didn't know anyone with that specific scenario, but up until they killed somebody and had to stay for life. Yeah.
Okay.
Guys that, and if you don't group up, you're not protected, and you'll get picked on, you'll get jumped, you've got to group up. And if you don't, you're in trouble. And it's that way. In Utah, I interviewed a guy from California that was in prison in California. He calls Utah prisony land. Because if you go outside Utah, it's infinitely worse, his claim is, and I'm not surprised. I believe that.
Oh, I believe it too. Any problem? Did you ever have any classroom brawls, classroom fights? Were you ever in danger during class?
No, never. And that was the amazing part. When I first went in, they give you training, the corrections give you training about how dangerous this place is, and your life's always at risk, and you got to be careful, and you got to avoid this, that, and the other. And when I first went in, I was looking over my shoulder and I was scared. By about 3 months, I was going anywhere in that prison I wanted to go, and I was completely fearless.
Really? And we're talking now, if I can visualize it, the cafeteria, whatever, men are walking around freely, and you're walking, like if somebody had a shank or whatever, they could just get up and stab you if they wanted to.
Absolutely, and I had no fear of it. In fact, if anyone would have tried to hurt me, the majority of them would have jumped them.
Interesting.
No matter their affiliation. They would not hurt me. They would not hurt me or any of the teachers. They looked at us as being people who cared, and people who tried to help them, and people who were good. We were on their side. That's really what you look at. They would protect us, and I never had any fear.
I would have been worried about
that 3-4 month thing.
Okay. I would have been worried about the 10%ers that are just absolutely psycho though.
Those guys were usually not out in public that much.
I see
them. You didn't see them.
I see.
A quick story about 2 months in, maybe 3 months in, I was up in what was called the Gale Housing Unit. I'd been talking to the captain, because that's what I did. I went out and started working with the captains of the housing units and the lieutenants in the housing units, and really started to talk to them about how to get guys to school.
Okay.
Well, I was walking up to a slider, a door, and the slider in front of me closed, which surprised me. And there's a little button you push, and I pushed the button, and they said, "You're going to have to wait. We've got a controlled movement." So they were taking an inmate, level 4 inmate, which is a isolated 23 hours a day isolated inmate. They were moving him to medical, and so they have to shut everyone else out because he's in shackles. So I'm standing there in front of this slider, and all of a sudden the hallway starts to fill with inmates. And I'd been there 2 months, maybe 2.5 months, and there's no officers anywhere. I'm going, oh my gosh, what's up with this?
Wow.
So I recognized the guy, a guy in the crowd, and his name was, I don't remember his name now, but I said, "Hey bud, how you doing?" And I just started trying to calm myself to visit. I figured if I can talk to somebody, maybe I'll feel better, because there's no place to run. I got to run through 25 guys to get out, or I got to run through this slider that's closed. So I was absolutely, oh my gosh. And I got out of there, and I thought, oh, that was scary. It wasn't 6 months later that almost the exact same thing happened. And I'm just chatting with guys, and it's like I'm standing there with my buddies.
How about that?
I came to realize that this was not a dangerous place for me. And I had no fear. It was crazy, but what happened is I came to realize that I was completely wrong about this situation. These guys want to change. You volunteer and help in a prison, it will change your life. You want a life-changing experience, go to the local prison, wherever it is, and say, "I would like to come in and volunteer. I would like to teach an entrepreneur class." Your life will change forever, because mine did.
Is it emotionally? There had to be. You seem like a pretty big, tough guy, but I also feel like you're very passionate and emotional. Were there evenings where you come home with your wife and you're tearing up, telling her about stories that are just sad, that you're just, did you find that difficult?
It happened about a month ago. That scenario. I go back into prison now and volunteer Monday mornings for 4 hours. Okay. I teach a class called Captain Your Story. It's a class about what we talked about. It teaches them how to manage their life and how to focus on, living a good life. It's a 12-week course, and it's changing. It's absolutely changing these men in 12 weeks. And I came home a month ago and started telling, started just kind of coming up right now, telling my wife about this guy who was in a gang.
Mm,
All right.
it's okay. Yeah.
His name's Luciano, and he's covered with tattoos. And he started this class, and he's actually started it way back in when I first started. So that would have been the first part of April. And he's going through the class for the second time. And as a result of this class, he decided to bail on his gang. And what happens when you bail on your gang?
Yeah. Now you're by yourself. He's in danger.
He got the hell beat out of him by his gang.
Mm.
It was hard.
You saw him. You saw him with the marks and scars and
I
everything
saw
on
him
his face.
after. Yeah. Yeah. He disappeared for about a week and a half, couple of weeks. We didn't see him, but everybody said he got beat up. And he came back. He came back to class, and he stayed in class, and he's left the gang. And he amazing artist, talented kid. He's probably 20, I'd say he's mid-20s, late 20s. He's in prison for killing a guy.
Oh.
You know, but he's just something else. I can't hug him, but if I could hug him, I would. That's against the rules. I guess I could, but he's just an amazing person.
So you're not allowed to touch him?
Well, you can shake their hands. You're not supposed to hug them. I
see. Yeah, I bet you want to pass out hugs. I'd want to pass out hugs. They probably need hugs, for God's sakes.
They do. They really do. But they are so thankful for a handshake or a fist bump.
Have you thought about, I'm sure you have, going into, I mean, I know you're older now, right? I guess you're nearing retirement, or maybe, but did you think about, man, I want to go into Department of Corrections. I want to get in the system and change it and be what's the head of the prisons called? I'm spacing.
He's called the director. The director of the DOC.
I mean, did you want to do that job where you're like, I'm going to get in this, I can do this better? Did that ever cross your mind?
No, it never did, but I got a better offer. This is the reason I'm back into space. The reason I'm doing a podcast. The reason that I'm going into volunteer, because I'd given up. After I retired, I spent some years on a committee. We'd put together a committee to affect legislative change in the prison system and try to get the world changed. We had some success, but government's so slow, and I just got frustrated. And I kind of bailed several times and came back. Well, this last time I came back for a very good reason. The new director, he was hired in March, is a kid who played basketball for me 35 years ago.
How about that?
Yeah.
Wow. Pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. And he was a student body president. He's a great kid, just a super kid. In fact, I worked when I was a teenager. See, it was a small community I grew up in, and I worked for his dad. I knew his grandpa.
Wow.
His aunt and uncle were friends to my brother and sister. I mean, so I've known this kid. He's not a kid. He's 50-something years old, but I've known him forever.
Is he the director? He's the director at the prison you worked at?
He's the director for the prisons in the entire state.
I see. Okay.
He is the head honcho of prisons.
How about
and
that?
We've had multiple meetings, and I am confident. In fact, I'm going to see him tomorrow in the afternoon. We're going into the prison. He's coming in to meet the classes that I'm working with. He's coming in to meet them.
All right.
And he is going to change this world.
That's good stuff.
It's going to change the world in Utah, and my hope is it changes the world in the United States. I think what we can do, you watch in the next year, things are going to change dramatically here, and it's going to be incredible. It's going to be earth-shaking. And it's a crazy prediction, but I know this kid, and he's already shaken the world. He's changing position. He's just reassigning people, letting people go. He's moving the machine.
Can you mention his name?
His name is Brian Red.
Okay. Very good. Okay. So the book, All My Friends Are Felons, Finding Hope for the Utah Department of Corrections, available on Amazon. and paperback, Kindle, I guess.
Yes.
And where else? Any bookstores as well?
No, you really can't get in bookstores, but it's on Amazon. I'm actually about a third of the way through doing the audio book, so we're going to put it on Audible. Hopefully,
Great.
that should be done mid-October.
Okay.
And that's when we're going to launch our podcast, et cetera, et cetera. But that should be done mid-October, and we're going to put that on Audible as well.
Is it going to be your voice?
It is.
Yes, please.
That's not always great, but my podcast producer says, Mark, you're going to do this. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Especially if you're going to have a podcast, the audio book's got to be yours. It's just not the same when the author doesn't read it. I don't think I prefer the author to hear
that's
the
what he
author's
said.
voice.
So
Yeah.
I got a kind of a scratchy, stuttery voice, but
Oh, you'll be fine.
That's
You'll be
fine.
fine. What's the name of the podcast? All My Friends Are
all
Felons?
my friends are felons.
Okay, very good. I'm guessing it's going to be everywhere. Spotify.
That's Spotify, Apple.
Oh,
We're going to put it on
okay.
YouTube. We'll put it on all the little podcast companies.
Video and audio.
It is. We're still having some struggle. The company I hired isn't big in video. They're a podcast company, LaunchPod. But we're convinced them that we want pictures of these guys, and we want it so we can put it on YouTube and we can put it on Instagram and some of these places.
Okay.
So
Okay. All right. Let me just give you my personal opinion on that, especially if you're going to be interviewing former inmates, which is going to be a big part of your crowd or your guest.
yes, it is.
I'm going to want to see them. I'm going to want to see their faces. I'm going to want to see the emotional reaction. I'm going to want to see you talking to them. Please, it's got to be on video. It's got to be on video.
That's our feeling too. So.
Yeah, I would think. Okay, very good. And the website, tell us about the website and what's the URL going to be and what's it going to consist of?
All My Friends Are Felons is .com. We'll probably get .org as well.
All right.
You can go there. We're going to have a sign up website where you can get on our mailing list. You can also, if you are a person who knows someone and who's been a felon or has something to contribute to our podcast, there's a place where you can fill out a form and say, we'd like to be on your podcast and here's why.
Okay.
We'll have links to some of the organizations that we're affiliated with. We're not going to be a nonprofit, but we're going to take the extra money. It's going to take so much money to run the podcast, but once that money's used up, we're going to use the rest of the money to donate to several charities. They're not charities, they're nonprofits that work in this space to help people. One of them is the Other Side Academy. There's one here in Salt Lake and there's one in Denver. And it's their organizations where it's literally a 2-year program. They bring guys that are getting sentenced. So they're pre-prison. Some guys are coming out of prison. Some guys are homeless, drug addicts, and they take these people and they change their lives. They have a 70% success rate.
Okay.
They kick out 70% of their participants to date are drug free, have a job, and are crime free.
That's great. That's great. How can the average person listening to this show help? Is there going to be a donation button? How can they help?
Yeah, we're gonna have a donation button where they can donate. We're gonna get on some podcast thing. My son is a computer geek, so he does I interview people. I'm a bavard. I can talk to people all day long, and that's what I'm good at. But I'm not good at all the technology. So my son's going to do all that stuff for us, as well as the podcast company. But we'll have a spot on there where you can donate. We'll have a spot on there where you can be a sponsor. We're going to do merchandise. So we're going to have we have a store that you can buy T-shirts and hats and those little wrist rings. Talking about second chances and talking about change and how
very good.
So
very good. I know how we can help. So Riderflex, our day job at Riderflex is a recruiting and staffing firm beyond the podcast, right? So the way we can help is, when you get people that are ready to enter the workforce and they can't get an interview, nobody will hire them, whatever. I am happy to talk to those folks. You can introduce us here at Riderflex. We're happy to put them in our database, put them in our system, so to speak, of our candidates, and then put them in front of clients that are willing to give people second chances. Because we have clients like that. We've done work for several companies that are willing to give people a second chance, which I think is awesome. So that's how we can help, for sure.
And I think that'd be something we want to partner with you.
Okay. Yep.
Those are the kind of
definitely.
things we want to connect. Any kind of program that is going to support, because it's hard. They get out of prison. Nobody
Oh, I
wants
believe
to,
it.
nobody will hire them. They can't find a
Yep,
place to
yep.
live. They don't even have a driver's license.
Yeah.
Their social security card is gone, so they don't have it. They have a number on their heads probably, but they don't have a card.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't get anything. They are just, and they get no support, and that they don't have family. They're just left on their own. So what do?
This ties into the 70% back to prison.
Yep, they go back to what they. Oh, I used to make a lot of money selling drugs.
You know,
or whatever it was, robbing banks or robbing whatever.
Here's an interesting stat. I'm sure you know this already, but you can emphasize it with these guys. There is a heavy need for trade skills, blue collar
Yes.
workers, right? Welders, electricians, plumbers, construction workers,
The heart of our country.
definitely. I mean, there is a major shortage in men and women able
Yep.
to and willing to do those jobs, a major shortage. And if you listen to any of the smart folks on podcasts that talk about the workforce, they will tell you that it's getting worse as the blue collar trade skill guys get older and they enter into
White collar.
retirement.
Management.
And now all of a sudden, good luck trying to find a 38-year-old welder. Good luck. I mean, it's, it's unbelievable. So I think there's value, or there's going to be opportunity for guys coming out of prison to fill those jobs because people can't find anybody. And not only is there a shortage in those workers, but people don't want to work. If the 30s and 40-year-olds are like, lay concrete, they're like, no, they want to go to Starbucks and play on their phone. They don't want to lay concrete, right? So there's going to be opportunity, I think, is my point.
And one of the things that we did in our education program is actually beyond secondary education. We brought in technical skills, and we started doing classes. We taught computer coding, for example. We taught machine language. We did all that with inmates.
That's
we
great.
didn't have any money. We didn't get any money from anybody. We just started teaching these skills. So when guys got out, they could say, yeah, I learned how to frame. We started building tough sheds, basically.
Great. Yeah.
And we would sell them to the people in the community. In fact, my mother-in-law has one in her backyard. They'd build them and we'd haul them out. And
I really believe, and we could do a whole podcast on this, and I know we're over on our time. The guy who founded LinkedIn, Mark Andreessen, I think, right, was being interviewed by Joe Rogan, and Mark was saying, what he's like, isn't it interesting? We thought that the AI and the robots were going to take the blue collar jobs first, and the white collar jobs on the laptops are safe. And that has totally flipped around. And now the white collar laptop jobs are in danger because AI is taking them, and the blue collar jobs are actually more valuable.
It's true.
It's true.
Who's going to build our houses? Who's going to plumb them? Who's going to fix our cars? Who's going to pave our roads? It's on and on and on. Yeah. But the problem you described is when you get 45, that work gets pretty hard. Your body's pretty worn out.
Right. That's right.
And it's hard. So you got to move into management, or you got to move into something above, and you need younger guys to do the work. And these guys, many of them are eager. That's great. They'd rather frame a house than sell drugs.
Yeah, great. Awesome. I think there's going to be opportunity. And your program and what you're doing is going to help. And thank God for people like you, Mark, that are helping these folks. And that's we can wrap it right there with that, right? It's got to feel, well, I guess you've always been in a serve kind of job, right? Whether it's the basketball coach or the teaching, you've always served the community or served people with almost everything you've done in your life. And this has got to be truly fulfilling and rewarding if you don't lose your patience and get frustrated at the system.
Well, that's where I get my fulfillment. I have a couple businesses right now that I make a living at.
Good.
But I don't, money's not my motivator. Never has been. God's
Yeah.
always taken care of me in that regard. We have enough to live and we have a nice life.
That's great.
But people, I'm a people guy. And I don't always get it right. I don't always do it the best I can, but I like to serve and I like to help. And I'm in a great space for that, because especially with Brian Red coming in as the new director, I just can see some changes happening and happening quickly. And I'm just excited to watch it and to be a small part of it.
Very good. I'm wishing you the best with your podcast. All my friends are felons, and continued success with your book, and the website, and just everything you're doing, man. Appreciate you, and congratulations on everything, Mark. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.